This is the Defenders podcast on TV Podcast Industries, and this time we're talking about What If, Episode 5. What If Zombies? Grr, arg.
Heart rate's elevated, temperature's not going in the right direction.
Then we both know what you have to do.
No, not when we could be minutes away from a cure.
Can we really take that risk?
It's not risk. It's hope. And anyone who's seen a zombie movie knows that that's the key to survival. Plus, it's also your name, and that's gotta mean something.
Oh, kid. How do you do it?
See all these movies? AV Club.
No. How do you stay so upbeat after everything?
Practice, I guess. My mom, dad, Uncle Ben, Mr. Stark. Now happy. I've lost a lot. But my Aunt May used to say, that if we don't keep smiling when they can't, then we might as well just be gone too. And, well, they'd want us to keep going.
Welcome back, fellow defenders. Yes, I'm speaking in guttural gurgs and args, and that is a direct translation of what I'm saying, which is welcome back, fellow defenders, to TV Podcast Industries. We're talking about What If, Episode 5, What If Zombies. I'm one of your hosts, Chris.
I'm one of your other hosts, Derek.
Hello, fellow defenders. I am your third and final host, John. Yes, I just thought you were singing the most in tune ever that you've done before, to be honest, Chris.
It is. I was singing Britney.
Yeah, I thought it was a beautiful rendition.
Yeah, it was Hit Me Baby One More Time. Hit Me in the Head.
Or Bite Me Baby One More Time.
Oh,
Nice.
better.
I like it.
Risque.
Right up front, we did get a piece of feedback from one of our wonderful defenders who was complimenting us on our ability to guess or not guess the titles of each of the episodes. I am so disappointed with the title of this episode. We knew there were Marvel zombies coming, and I was really hoping it was going to be something like, what if there was a zombie virus outbreak in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or something like that. But what if ... zombies? Little bit more imagination needed, guys.
It was a bit on the nose. It was just like, there was like 50 decisions, and it was all up on the board, and it came down to the wire, and that was like, what if zombies? Yeah, go with that one.
Even if it had an exclamation mark, and then question mark as well.
Yeah.
Because it would be like, it's shouting, it's zombies.
Yeah.
They're on their way.
Zombies? Yeah, technically. Be the shouty question inflection.
Exactly.
Very Scooby-Doo there, Chris.
Thank you.
One other mention for our wonderful defenders, just in case you missed it last time. Our coverage of Shang-Chi and the 10 Rings will be coming in October, because none of us have seen the movie yet, unfortunately. We're hoping to get to see it either in the cinema as it goes out of the cinema, or on digital when it comes to Disney Plus. I think that's due to arrive on Disney Plus on about the 19th of October, I think, just in time for my birthday, which is great. So it could be our birthday podcast this year. Shang-Chi.
Hint, I believe.
Hint. Yes. Send me your Shang-Chi goodies for my birthday this year. But we are really looking forward to hearing great things about it. I know the box office has been huge for it. One of the biggest movies since the pandemic started, at the very least. And I know this particular weekend, it's one of the biggest movies in about 4 or 5 years, I think, in the US for this weekend. So fantastic for a brand new property from Marvel, one that we love as well. So one that we've all read some Shang-Chi comics over the last year, definitely, and I certainly have read them over the last 20 years. Really excited to see what they do with them. But no spoilers from us because we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it, to be honest. I'm getting impatient now. We need to book cinema tickets.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, Ireland is a bit much like the US. It's up and down with the deltas and the Mews and and not the Pokemon, the variant, and not the Loki variant, the other variant. Yeah. Anyway, on to bigger and better and more fun things. Brain-eating apocalypse plagues. Yes, zombies. Let's talk about zombies. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, fellow defenders, thank you very much for joining us. Don't forget, you can pop on over to tvpodcastindustries.com where you can subscribe, hit that like, share, review, all those jazzy things. But you can also send us feedback there, or feedback at tvpodcastindustries.com, or head on over to facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries where we have spoiler posts for each and every episode. Don't forget, you can also head on over to patreon.com where you can support us for a single grr or maybe an arg and continuously that would always fill our zombie hamsters running in the wheels, keeping the lights on, the podcast going, things like that.
And our zombie producer.
Or you can head on over to buymeacoffee.com/TVPI, also grr and arg, where it's grr and arg flavored espresso to keep him going. Brains. These were not well thought through.
Yeah, that didn't work well.
Ones.
I do feel like a zombie this week after our first week back at work after holiday. I do feel a little bit like a zombie recording tonight. So we will attempt to give you a good piece of coverage on this episode of What If, episode 5.
Yeah. Well, I guess instead of get me a coffee, it would be get me a forearm or a thigh or something like that.
What about a 5-arm?
Well, yes, I don't think they exist.
No, but speaking of things that do exist, Derek, do you want to tell us about this episode?
Sure. The episode, once again, executive producers of the series are Bryan Andrews, A.C. Bradley, and Brad Winterbaum, with Kevin Feige, executive producing the show. A head writer for the show is A.C. Bradley, but this week, head writing credits go to Matthew Chauncey, who co-wrote episode 3 with A.C. Bradley, and the episode, once again, directed by Bryan Andrews. John, do you want to give us the synopsis for Marvel Zombies, or What If? Episode 5.
Sure. One bite can change a universe. Bruce Banner is sent to warn Earth's mightiest heroes that the Mad Titan is on his way, but when he arrives at Doctor Strange's sanctum, the city of New York is empty. With no one to help, Bruce's fate looks sealed when Ebony Maw and Cull Obsidian arrive on Earth to retrieve the other Infinity Stones. But out of the darkness, Iron Man, Doctor Strange and Wong arrive and dispatch the Black Order members. But as the dust settles, our heroes begin to feed on them before turning their attention on Banner. The Avengers have become zombies. Luckily, Hope Van Dyne saves Bruce and Spider-Man whisks him away to their base of operations. Spidey introduces Bruce to the rest of the survivors, including Happy Hogan, Sharon Carter, the Winter Soldier, Okoye, and Ant-Man's former criminal colleague Kurt, and onboards him to the zombie apocalypse. The team explains that the outbreak was caused when Hank Pym rescued his wife Janet Van Dyne from the Microverse, who had become infected with the virus. The Avengers were brought in to help, but only accelerated its spread as they became infected with the virus. The world was quickly overrun. The team, though, find a ray of hope when they receive a message from a former S.H.I.E.L.D. outpost to inform them that someone has found a cure. They make the dangerous trip across New York, losing Sharon and Happy to the zombies, and an injured Hope Van Dyne who sacrifices herself to get them to their destination. There they find Vision, who has survived the zombie outbreak. Vision reveals that the Mind Stone could be the key to the survival of the human race, revealing the cured head of wisecracking Scott Lang. But Vision's real motives become apparent when they find a mutilated T'Challa at the base and realize he's trying to keep Wanda Maximoff alive and captive by feeding her other superheroes. The powerful Scarlet Witch escapes, killing Kurt, Bucky, and Okoye. Spidey, the head of Scott Lang, and T'Challa escape to Wakanda with the cure and Vision's Mind Stone, just as the zombie Thanos has arrived in New York to collect the final Infinity Stone.
Fun little adventure this week. Marvel Zombies. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, loved it. It was a fun jaunt.
Mm-hmm.
It was not high stakes. It was still slightly sad, dark.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely in parts. Had a lot of humor, had a lot of zombie references. I love me some zombie films.
Yep.
I also love me some Marvel. I love me some Marvel zombies.
Mm-hmm.
It combined a lot of them all in fun and also getting Peter Parker and the Cloak of Levitation and the Scott Lang as a floating head. Like, you cannot get much better. Loads of callback and Easter eggs to the comic books.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed it. It's not my number one of so far, but it was definitely there. And I'll say it now because I'll say it again later. Great to have Chadwick Boseman. It was another one of his.
Absolutely.
And it was his true Black Panther, if you know what I mean. It's the Black Panther we've had previously. So it was good to get that as well.
Sans a leg.
Yes,
Sans leg, yes.
One leg, exactly. Can I just say a huge congratulations to Mark Ruffalo? I think his performance in this episode is so good. It's a really good performance. That the voice performances have been, I don't know if you know, a lot of these people aren't voice actors, but they're great actors. But I think Mark Ruffalo does such a great job in this episode because he seems to be really enjoying himself, doing something that you would never see Bruce Banner do in the movies. His moments of, oh God, please don't kill me, are great fun.
Yeah, and him talking to the Hulk throughout parts of it is like when he talks, come on, big man, come on, do it. Oh, now you come in? I was just like, yeah.
Really good stuff. Will we kick off our top three for the episode, guys?
Yes, let's kick it off. So, our top point, our number one part, if you've been following us, is what if we had seen this before? So, like, where have we seen the beginning point of this? Kicking it off pretty easy is essentially the Infinity War and Ant-Man and the Wasp. Those are the two main connecting tissue from the MCU.
Yeah, I feel like you kind of need to see Infinity War to understand why Hulk is flying through space on the Rainbow Bridge to land into the Sanctum Sanctorum.
The Bifrost, in fact.
Bifrost, that's absolutely right, not the bridge. I always get those two confused. But I also think it's really heavily leans on Ant-Man and the Wasp. You really need to know those characters because everybody from those movies, most of the big characters, let's say Lewis is the only character that we really miss from those movies, but most of the big characters from those movies feature here quite heavily.
Yeah. I don't understand why we didn't get Lewis though. Even a silly cameo, because that would have elevated this slightly even further.
I wonder if it's because they're saving him for episode 9. What if Lewis narrated the entire history of Marvel?
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody's been asking for years, so why wouldn't you do it? Half hour of Lewis giving his overview of the Marvel history.
Yeah.
I similar to the way you called out Mark Ruffalo, I do want to very quickly call out Paul Rudd. He just had a blast. He was like full on Ryan Reynolds in this, just like, I'm going to make as many silly dad jokes, zombie jokes as possible. And he just kind of ran with it. And again, Paul Rudd is Paul Rudd. He was a comedic actor before he became the MCU's Scott Lang. And he has those chops. And I think he's one of the only other ones who delivers. Like, I hate to say it, Paul Bettany is quite robotic in this.
That's on purpose, though, Chris.
Is it though?
I thought he sounded very like his vision that we saw towards the end of the season. It did seem quite Paul Bettany, really.
Yeah,
I remember he's been delivering that voice role for over 10 years, so I think he sounded quite similar to the way he always does. But I think you're right. Yeah, Paul Rudd, great fun. And I know we'll get into the actual story of the episode in our next point, but I didn't expect to see him in the episode, given that we had a very early moment that he gets killed off or gets eaten as by the returning Hank Pym. I didn't expect to see him in the episodes. I thought it was just literally that one line that he delivered. So when we did see him later, really good to see a lot of fun with Paul Rudd. The one other big thing I think we should call out is where have we seen it before, is where Marvel Zombies began. A lot of confusion because a lot of people think Robert Kirkman invented Marvel Zombies or came on board to Marvel to do Marvel Zombies, but they actually began in Ultimate Fantastic Four, issue 23 to 25, I think, written by Mark Millar, who had this really interesting idea of having an entire universe overrun by Marvel superheroes who had already been turned into zombies, and then bringing Reed Richards from the Ultimate Universe over into that universe and then trying to get him back from there without being eaten effectively. So I thought that was great fun. It was one of those ones where you were looking forward to every issue because they would put multiple characters, like pretty much every single character I can think of appears as a zombie in those 3 or 4 issues. And it's a really different take on zombies, which we'll talk about in the main part of this episode and some of our feedback as well. And one of the most interesting differences between the Marvel Zombies characters that were created by Mark Millar and taken on by Robert Kirkman and other writers, one of the most interesting changes to them from other zombies that you'd see in other universes and in the cartoon here that we'll talk about in this episode. One of the big differences is they retain their superhero powers and they talk to each other. They retain their knowledge of what they've done. As they get more and more hungry, they get more and more stupid and more dumbed down and get an overriding sense that they need to eat. But once they've eaten, they return to pretty much their normal selves and then get more and more hungry. So a big difference to what you'd see in The Walking Dead for the zombies or any other zombie properties. These zombies in Marvel Comics are ones that know what they're doing and know how to use their powers. So we will talk about how it differentiates itself in the What If episode, but it's a really interesting idea in the comics, I think.
Yeah. In the comics, they call it the Great Hunger. That is the name of the virus, the hunger. There's a fantastic scene in one of the originals. I think it was in the Miller, but I could be wrong, probably in the Kirkman, where the Hulk eats so much that he then sedates himself and makes himself so happy that he returns back to Bruce Banner levels.
Yep.
And because his whole body shrinks, the food inside him didn't shrink, and his whole gastrointestinal, he basically just blows himself up in half because his stomach just explodes because there's still so many people in there and he shrinks back down. Very gruesome, very cool. But we're not talking about the comic books. We are talking about this What If. And let's quickly just discuss the where these small changes happened. And that's our second point. What if there was just a single small change? What is the premise of this episode? And I want to get in because I have one bone to pick, which is the source of the virus. So, Janet Van Dyne contracts a virus in the microverse and infects Hank Pym, and they bring it back, and Scott Lang, he gets infected, and then Scott Lang infects the Avengers, and that's the downfall of the world. They could have done something better here. This was my only thing. It was just like, yeah, so it's in the microverse. What if she picked up a cold in the microverse and that turned her into that? I'm like, that okay. I get it. It's alright. It just wasn't the most, you could have, with the multiverse, you literally could have had very similar to okay, can't have redistribution. You could have an Iron Man contacts a multiversal Iron Man, and they are zombies. Yeah. Anyway, what did you think?
I didn't have a problem with Janet Van Dyne contracting it in the microverse. I think because this is taking the basis of the MCU, basically. So I guess the strangest elements of what we had in that would be associated with either the microverse, one of the dimensions of Doctor Strange, or a realm of Thor, ultimately, in terms of otherworldliness, or off-planet with Guardians of the Galaxies. I guess they're the four scenarios, rather than going to a zombie universe as part of the multiverse, because I guess that's what is this is kind of leading to, rather than being, to just show how different universes can or the same universe can change over and over again. So I really, that was fine. And I guess there were zombie troglodytes around that bit her, given that we saw them in Ant-Man and the Wasp. I think the thing for me was, Hank Pym has got a lot to answer for, given what he was doing to the Avengers in episode 3. And, he's a clever guy. If I saw anyone standing like that I would immediately go, either they're drunk or a zombie. The knees slightly in, the feet sort of slightly apart, sort of slightly hunched with the dangly legs. As I say, probably a bit like Peter Parker. I've seen too many horror movies. And so seeing that silhouette, I was like, yeah, don't go there, Hank. Please don't go there.
Yeah, but also beyond that, he was wearing a protective suit. Yeah. How did they get through just a note for any future adventures, if you're going to be going to a different universe, maybe wear a bit more protective spacesuit. Just maybe. That's all I'm saying.
Well, the thing I didn't get on that was because, irrespective of the suit, She had a helmet on.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know how she bit him.
She chomped through them.
Yeah.
She yeah.
I wasn't entirely. I know it flicks up and that, but technically, I guess she is a zombie.
Yes.
So I don't know. I was wondering how she was able, because it was just like a jump and a bite, and he had his helmet and suit on. So, I mean, I felt like there was possibly some kind of protection there. But look, it doesn't matter because it was a fun episode. Sorry, I rationalize it too much. But I think for me, one of the best things, though, I loved all the way through this, and I'm so glad that they used the Ant-Man movies as that reference point in this, was seeing the shrinking and growing that they use in this, because I thought that when Hope Van Dyne escapes from her by shrinking and backing away once she's returned to the universe, and then, effectively that's how she gets Scott Lang. I thought that was really cool. I thought it was a real neat little move. And then the Hank Pym biting Cap, he's there, all strong, shield, nothing can stop me, we'll sort this out. And mini Hank Pym just sort of, taking a little snack out of his neck as he shrunk down. I thought that was really, really clever of the writers.
Mosquito bite,
like a mosquito bite, doing all this with the formula of the Pym particles. I thought was just really a neat way of doing it. And that kind of followed through all of this, even with Hope, helping everyone, to get
Hope
to
being the hope.
Yeah, to get to the shield, or even just going small in order to then, and I did love this, explode out of Sharon, alien-esque. I thought that was really cool.
I've got Sharon all over me.
Yeah, exactly.
And the fantastic line from Okoye going, well, the kid has hand sanitizer. Really, really good stuff. You guys had a problem with Hank getting bitten, or how did Janet Van Dyne get bitten? They all have protective suits on. I don't care about any of those. There's a possibility you could have broken through those. Iron Man got bitten. He is inside a full metal armored suit, and he still got the zombie virus.
That was the other one.
I have no idea how that happened. You see him getting overwhelmed by a lot of people, but most likely he would die of starvation from lying underneath the corpses of thousands of zombies before he got bitten. He's probably smart enough not to open up the helmet, right?
Exactly, and I'm thinking of his AI as well, not Jarvis.
Friday.
Friday. Yeah, and I'm
Friday, John, remember?
Exactly, and surely she kind of went, come on now, and just put the poisonous gas into the suit or something, or, the sort of did the slice and dice within the suit, because obviously she can't be affected, but she's not going to help him if he's. So, there were a few of those things, but ultimately,
remember, these zombies do keep their abilities and keep their knowledge, so it's entirely possible that he could have just turned off Friday. He still has the ability to do that. But you have to have it. You have to have Tony Stark turning into a zombie. It's really important to have all the Avengers, because the scene that it kind of leads to is the introduction of Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner back on Earth, going into Sorcerer Supreme's place, calling out exactly like he did in the movie, and then going, hang on a second, nobody's around. But I love how it played out. I love that he still goes outside and has the interaction with Cull Obsidian, Ebony Maw. He's still calling for Hulk to come out and help him out. Hulk still doesn't come out and help out. But then we get the appearance of Doctor Strange, Wong, and Tony Stark coming through one of the portals of Doctor Strange. So brilliantly put together, this sequence. Everything in shadow, feeling that Bruce Banner thinks he's being saved by his friends, the Avengers, and then realizing, hang on a second, they seem to be taking a bit of a bite out of Obsidian's arm as it just kind of twitches with
well, exactly. He goes, isn't that a bit of overkill? Which I thought was a nice little line as well. And I love that. I love that Wong has his head chopped off. I'm, the dark stuff here I really enjoyed. Love the horror stuff. because I love how it references Cull Obsidian having his arm taken off through the sling ring. And that was a really nice, and again, having the cloak back, where he's tugging on, Wong and Doctor Strange to stop them from, getting to Bruce Banner was really good. I'm enjoying the cloak.
Teeth as he's trying to get out of. Great use of the cloak this week after last week, having the cloak being completely destroyed in that battle with Doctor Strange. Nice to see him as a bit of a hero throughout this episode. That's quite cool.
No, 100%.
Definitely.
And then we get Peter Parker. We get the Spider-Man.
Yes, we
and
do.
we get a direct reference to the Marvel Zombie comic book cover, where Spider-Man is swinging with a body under his arm. It was very fun. I really enjoyed the Peter Parker Guide to the Apocalypse.
Yeah.
It was very Homecoming / very Zombieland.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I thought,
It was that kind of like 5 rules to survive the zombie apocalypse. And it was just that Zombieland. And then it was just with the Homecoming aspect, kind of the video log. Enjoyed how they introduced all the characters. Absolutely loved David Dastmalchian. He blows it away every time he's in, and he's personally one of my favorite characters in any of the Ant-Man films.
Right.
Also, like, you've seen him in Suicide Squad, and some of our earlier listeners wouldn't remember, back from the Gotham TV podcast days. Yes, he was in Gotham.
Yeah.
He was
in The Dark Knight.
He's been everywhere. He does such a great job, and he seems like such a lovely guy as well. It was fun to see him in here. It's interesting because he's probably the least recognizable of the characters. Just because he's a guy wearing overalls with black hair. When he starts to speak, you go, oh, I do know who that is.
Yeah.
And then eventually it's Kurt. That's his name. Okay, I gotta know who this guy is. I love this team, the team that are left with Spidey and Hope Van Dyne, the Winter Soldier and Sharon. You can see how they might be able to get out of any situation, so I can see why they're there. Kurt seems like, hang on a second, how did you get here? Maybe Hope went and rescued him and couldn't rescue any of the rest of the team, I like that. And then, of course, Happy Hogan.
Yes.
Great character to have in there. I love that Peter's still able to manipulate Happy Hogan the whole time. And, of course, Okoye coming over to try and find the leader, Black Panther T'Challa. I think that's another great person to have in there. But I love how serious she is, how much of on a mission Okoye is, and everybody else is kind of just trying to stay alive, it feels like. Okoye's still on her mission and still...
Or have fun. I mean, I love that Happy has got, the Iron Man hands, and is doing his blam, blam, blam. And I have to say, I thought, with Sharon, where she's like, turns his hand away as he's about to bite her and fire off one of the blams into her face, I guess, just turns it around and goes, blam? I was like, oh my goodness, because obviously they're making their way to the SHIELD outpost, and they have to go through, as you always should, a good railway station. I actually...
Grand Central.
Yeah, Grand Central. But speaking of that, I loved how they suspended the metro carriages above the skyscrapers. I thought that was a real neat little headquarters that they had sort of rigged up, or Spidey had rigged up. I thought that was pretty neat, for sure.
Before we move to Grand Central, the ant stripping of basically the zombies down to their bones.
Yeah.
How cool was that?
That was awesome.
I was like, wait, do the ants become zombies because they've eaten zombie flesh? I had a question around that in my head, but of course I let it go. Doesn't matter. But, because comic books. But anyway, I just thought that was so good. And then, but as we went further, I was like, why are we walking? Why not just jump on the ants? And also, like, why not just use the ants to completely...
I know, I was thinking that. Give the ants the job to get rid of the zombies. Yeah.
It was just like, come on.
No.
Anyway.
Yeah, if you're going to use that up front, you got to have a reason why it's not used again.
Yes, exactly. And it didn't. It wasn't. It was just like, it looked so cool.
Like, it would have been great if Hope had used that and then found they did turn into zombies. Okay, can't use that ability again.
Yeah, exactly.
Just something there would have been really good. But yes, the battle in Grand Central as they try and get the train to Jersey, which I'm reliably informed there is no train to Jersey from the city centre. But we're in the What If universe, so that doesn't matter.
What if there was a train service to Jersey?
Well, there doesn't have to be. There has to be. Is there a line? Is there at least a line? Maybe not a train service, but maybe there's a line.
You can draw a line, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
As the crow flies. But
it doesn't matter. But I do love the fight. It's sad that we lose Happy here, but as I say, he goes down in a great joke of the zombie version of himself. He's still going blam.
Well, I think Falcon does as well. I mean, firstly, I was not expecting Falcon to be sliced and diced by Okoye, like he was. But even just then, with Bucky's reaction with, I should be more upset than I am, but effectively because his friend is a zombie trying to eat him and turn him and kill him. So, and you get the same one with Steve as well in the carriage. So I really kind of liked, Bucky's vibe here, as well, just with basically two of his best friends, you know. And
interesting you take Bucky's line as that. Bucky's line is, I should be sad, but I'm not at the death of Falcon. Yeah. Remember, Falcon and Winter Soldier hasn't happened yet.
That is true.
Post-Endgame.
Okay.
So I think Bucky's going, I should be sad about his death, because he is another hero, but I don't really care for this guy.
Agreed.
Basically.
But with the fact that, with that knowledge of the show and what's happened, I had that context with me, so I was kind of like going, okay, you know, it kind of resonated a bit beyond this, for me. And then also with, the Steve Rogers look kind of like a ham being sliced on one of those, sort of rings with the shield. Again, I guess this is the end of the line, and his intended pun, again, I really chuckled at some of this really great / bad humour.
You know, genuinely, that was probably my biggest laugh out loud moment with I guess this is the end of the line, because it's so harsh from Bucky to say that to Steve. You know, that has been, the two of them have been friends since the 40s, effectively. But for Bucky to kill him and go, I guess that's the end of the line, to use a one-liner, I thought was really harsh on his best friends.
But isn't that the callback to the first Avenger?
It's a callback, yeah.
Because he says, I'll be with you until the end of the line.
Exactly, but to use it as a one-liner, like in an action movie, I guess it's the end of the line for you, Steve, and seems really harsh for Bucky, that's all.
Right, like, it would have been worse if he goes, well, I guess the end of the line is shut half, or something, putting in a halfway point.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, the end of the line is now the halfway point. Like you.
That would have been terrible.
That's worse. See, you can make it worse. Just MCU writers, if you have any questions on how to really make your writing worse, come to us.
There you go.
I will make it so bad.
Yeah. Send your request to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. They will be forwarded to Chris. But the whole purpose of this trip is going to meet up with Vision. Effectively, they don't know that on the way until they get there, and then they realize, well, of course, Vision wouldn't have been taken down by the zombie because he's a synthetic creature. There's an entire run of the Marvel Zombies comic books, which is based around all the synthetics getting together after everybody else has been destroyed, which I think is interesting. In a couple of the other universes, they're just torn apart by the zombies, effectively, because they're all still really strong. But in one of the universes, they all get together because they're kind of going, well, nobody's going to eat us, so we might as well work out how to deal with this problem. So I thought that's where they were going here. Interesting, they kind of take it from WandaVision, effectively. This is Vision's version of what happens when he's trying to keep Wanda alive because he can't live without her, effectively, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, another couple that really should never have met, to be honest.
Well, not for the rest of the world.
For the rest of the universe somewhere in this multiverse where they never meet, and I guess the Pims are more happy to drink Pims rather than sort of do science, well then that probably would be quite a nice universe. Because so far, I mean, killing the Avengers, bringing back a zombie virus, and then effectively unleashing, you know, the agent of chaos as a zombie on the world, whilst also sort of hacking off chunks of T'Challa for her as well, then like, yeah, the all bad news for the different universes in Marvel.
I do love that T'Challa does keep his sense of humor about it, though.
I know, good on him.
Even though he's lost an entire leg, he's effectively saying they took him for takeout.
No, it was like nothing had happened.
So I love that this is straight from the comic books. So in the comic books, Hank Pym keeps T'Challa alive and keeps cutting strips off his leg initially to keep his sanity and his intelligence to try and find a cure. And he's just slowly doing it. And it's basically he's trying to find the cure because Janet is the Scarlet Witch in this case. She's the zombie and he has her in a place. He does cure her. She then becomes the floating head in a jar that's in the... So they are pulling from the Kirkman and the Miller run like a lot. And I'm happy with it because we get then a floating head in a jar, people. Floating head in a... Come on.
Oh, I love
this
that.
Was like Futurama
It
level.
was
Fantastic.
Absolutely loved it. Yeah, the Futurama references, the comic references, the fact that the cloak is there doing
Exactly,
it.
That was the bit. I was like,
so good.
He becomes like literally. He even made the Harry Potter reference as they run away. He goes, "Leviosa, away!"
I know, so good. And even actually, because we didn't mention it, but Spider-Man with the cloak on as well in the tunnel. That was very, very cool.
Yes, it is very, very
very
cool.
short, but very cool.
But once again, see how much speculation has come out for all the Marvel stuff. There's a toy with Spider-Man wearing that cape. Called Spider-Man a Zombie Hunter. Not really. I don't know whether you could class that as a character in this episode. He's only there for a couple of seconds, effectively. I don't really know why the cloak is attaching itself to these non-magical beings, because that's supposed to be what the cloak does, right? That's the whole introduction of the cloak, is that it is an artifact that will find its sorcerer and become attached to it. Whereas in this entire episode, it's attaching it to itself to superheroes. But again, what if there was a universe where the cloak attached itself to superheroes and not just sorcerers, of course?
Yeah.
Well, exactly. Right? And whether there's any sorcerers left to attach to.
So I am curious. I think there is an element of the reason that we're getting a lot of these is that we will return to some of these universes. Or these characters will return. Captain Carter, Zombie Hunter, Peter Parker or Spider-Man. I get the like, okay, yes, Disney is a toy company, and
I was going to say that. Yeah. It's either that or Disney likes money, and they know that they've got to sell. So.
Well, I'm not going to lie. After seeing the episode, and then now Marvel have started putting out the day after, on the Thursday, they are then putting out a tweet across their or posts on all their different social channels with a link to their Amazon. Their updated what if material based
I can imagine
that week.
Yeah.
So there is now like a T'Challa Star-Lord action figure. There, I was like, yeah, I really do like the look of that.
I kind of want all those things.
Yes.
You guys mentioned the head in the jar. The head in the jar is Scott Lang, filled with dad jokes. How did you think this worked for the episode?
I loved it.
Yeah.
This was the Deadpool head for me.
Okay.
From the Marvel universe. Sorry, the Marvel Zombie universe, you get a Deadpool head, where it's just a Deadpool head walking around, floating around, or being carried around, making bad jokes. This was it for me, and I'm like, I am in for Scott Lang, because he can't do anything, so he can just make dead jokes.
Yeah, no, I did. I just loved, like you were saying before about Scott Lang, really, really good in this as Paul Rudd. I just thought it worked so well, because it felt so right, and it looked so iconic as well. I mean, if they did a Funko Pop like that, I'd be on it. And I guess they might do. And I love Futurama, so that head in the jar, it was just really great referencing all the way through the Harry Potter stuff. So this was really, I loved all of this, for sure.
Excellent.
Even like as they're taking off in the Quinjet, and you've got Hope Van Dyne, massive. I was thinking she should have shrunk herself before she actually turned, because I was expecting Big Hope to come back, and sort of cause trouble, but I love that she flung a zombie at the Quinjet as well. She tries to grab it. They escaped, so like the last kind of gasp effort was to throw a zombie at it, and that didn't work as well. So I thought that was really good.
Yeah, that was a really good fun moment at the end. One thing probably to talk about before we close off this major point is probably the plan of Vision. So he's let me make sure I've got this right, because I watched it twice and I wanted to make sure exactly what was happening. He knows that Wanda has a massive power. So he's locked her up, but he's feeding her to keep her alive, right? He's trying to protect the world from her powers. That's why he's locked her up, but he can't let her die. So he's feeding her in order that she doesn't die, but she doesn't turn on the world.
Yeah.
No.
What do you think happened, Chris?
So, he figured out how to cure. He made the cure Scott Lang because she is so powerful. The cure does not work on her. So he was trying to continue. He was just keeping her basically there so that until the point he figured out how to cure her, and until he kind of figured out how to tweak the cure ongoing and make it even better. That's the way I took it.
It could be both, actually. No, I would say it could potentially be both. I think there were, I think there are a few elements in this episode that maybe are not crystal clear, for sure.
Well, the virus turns people into zombies.
No, that is, but I mean, I guess it's to do more with our final point around Thanos, but certainly, I could take that either way.
Right.
To be honest,
yeah,
but
I think
I
actually
assumed,
both are combined together. Yeah. I think he's keeping her alive, making sure she's locked away so she can't use her powers, and if he eventually comes across a cure for her, he'll use the cure for her. But he did try the cure on her and it didn't work. It's just interesting because when they pose to him, why didn't you kill her? He goes, because I can't. And then kind of turns over to their side almost immediately. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And it kind of allows them to go and kill her. Really odd one that Bucky effectively just smashed the glass and she gets out. So he shot the glass effectively. So that's why she gets out. And then almost as punishment, he takes her on with a handgun. This is one of the most powerful beings in the Marvel Universe, and Bucky's like, sure, I'll try it out. I might as well try a couple of shots. And
he gets tossed aside, doesn't he?
I'm quite surprised he lasted as long as he did. He lasted a good old 30 seconds or 40 seconds before
I don't know if he died, though.
Mm.
He just became, he's air meat, essentially.
Yeah. I think he might have been thrown to the zombies there, to be honest.
Potentially, but again, if he lands on we've seen him land off weirder things. He fell and survived off a moving train down a crowd.
That is true.
So maybe he fell onto a pile of zombies that cushion his fall, and he just rolls with it. Anyway, we don't know. I want to bring it into one poignant quote, and it was the bit that made me. This whole episode was just fun.
Yeah.
There's one quote from Chadwick Boseman. Most people will get it, and I think, but it resonates more now based on the tragic circumstances of just him in general. But it's, in my culture, death is not the end. They are still with us as long as we do not forget them.
Yeah.
So prophetic, and just like, again, even if we say our culture is comic books and nerdism and whatever, he will never die. He will forever now live on in these what ifs, in these films, in our hearts, our souls, and our memory.
Yeah.
But really,
really powerful. Really, really
it was really poignant, wasn't it? Really, and it takes on, just such a different meaning. So yeah, it was really, it was nicely done.
It was a really good moment, a really powerful moment, and I do think Peter's moment is quite powerful in the episode as well, where he talks about where Hope is asking him why he's so upbeat all the time, and he's saying about losing everybody around him and taking on the philosophy of Aunt May. I think that's really poignant. One of the really interesting ones in the Marvel Zombies comics is when Peter is a zombie, he's basically telling them that he's already eaten Aunt May and Mary Jane, so and he feels and suffers the pain because those are the two people he loved and he ate them. So there's a little bit of that, whereas here we do have a much more positive Peter, much more Tom Holland-like Peter, in here, even though not voiced by Tom Holland. But at least we have a little more of the MCU version of Spidey in here.
Yeah. Is that because of the Sony contract? Or do we think that's because he was off filming No Way Home?
I don't know whether it's either of those things at all, Chris, because this is given that Chadwick Boseman was recording for this episode. That's possibly 2 to 3 years ago that these recording sessions have happened over the course of 2 to 3 years potentially. I just don't think every single actor was able to come back for whatever reason. Tom Holland filmed a lot of stuff, so it may not necessarily be Spider-Man, or it may not necessarily be the contract with Sony. He's doing a lot of work. If you've seen all the movies that he's got upcoming and the ones that released during the pandemic, I don't know whether you could get him into the studio to do something like this for Marvel.
It's true. Yeah, very true.
But I think the actor did a really good job. Hudson Thames is his name.
Great.
No, absolutely. I thought it was really good. It sounded Peter Parker-y, I guess, in the same way that Tom Holland does, and Andrew Garfield did. So like nice and Peter Parker-y, I guess.
That sounds like a disease in itself.
It does.
Oh, no.
Contracted that in Queens. I guess. But the great thing then really here is that they do manage to escape, and heading off to Wakanda where they still have their force field, and so it's literally one of the few places left that has survived this zombie apocalypse. There's a nice moment as well with Bruce stepping up to the mark as they escape on the Quinjet, and turning back into the Hulk. And it was that briefest of moment where I was like, oh no, he's going to get eaten. But of course then it was like, no, the Hulk's skin is impenetrable. And even just the Hulk turning Banner's forearm green as they try to say goodbye. Great. So there's a real big fight there between Wanda and Hulk that we only really get to glimpse, and we have no idea of the outcome. So that was a nice little touch. But I guess there's that move then to Wakanda, and with point 3 about what if the universe was changed forever.
What would be so different about this universe? Well, the entirety
Everyone's
of
dead.
the planet is now zombies, effectively. I thought that was quite interesting. Koya saying that effectively within 2 weeks, isn't it 2 or 3 weeks, the whole planet, except for Wakanda, because of this, the force field, effectively, that it hasn't been affected. So, that was quite interesting how quickly it moved across the whole planet. But we kind of know that now, from a certain pandemic that we will not name again, that these things can spread quite quickly.
Yeah, and of course, as we've said, we've watched so many zombie movies where we've gone, why is that person walking towards the zombie or doing something incredibly sort of, I guess, strange, or you could say illogical,
really stupid,
or really stupid in the context. And we realize that actually that will happen. We do know that will now happen. We have had living proof.
Yes,
if you're told not to put your hand in the fire, then I guess some
will
people
put your hand in the
will.
fire.
Yeah.
Two in every 10.
Or your hand into the shark tank, or whatever it might be.
Exactly. But the other big change for this universe is that the whole purpose at the beginning of the episode, Banner was coming back to Earth to warn the heroes that Thanos was on his way. They were able to put a challenge of some sort, at least, and stop them from getting the Infinity Stones. In this universe, Thanos is still able to get to Earth. He's still able to get he has 2 more Infinity Stones to collect when he's coming to Earth. One is the Time Stone, which is inside of the Eye of Agamotto, which Doctor Strange must have had. So I guess he just walked up to that
pile of dust and picked it off. Yeah,
picked it off. The easiest Infinity Stone to collect, I guess. Right?
Yeah, almost like Doctor Strange just giving it to him, like in the movies. I guess.
But unfortunately, he must have had his back turned while doing it, because he did get infected with the zombie virus.
Yeah, someone gave him a little nibble, that is for sure. But who? We don't know. But we do see at the end that Thanos there, as you say, there with all the Infinity Stones apart from the Mind Stone.
Yep.
Just going back to about some of the things weren't necessarily as clear. I the moment where you see Thanos and he kind of clutches his fist, and you see the stones that he's got sort of igniting. I thought this was in New York, and then when we watched it the second time, I said I don't really recognize the buildings behind it, and I know that there's been talk that he was there in Wakanda, but you'd seen the force field with the zombies, I guess, on the outside, or at least that's what I took it. And of course, they could have been on the inside, but
just the curve on the screen.
No, exactly. That's why, for me, it was they were on the outside. Wakanda was still protected, but certainly, it was just that last glimpse of Thanos. It felt a little bit unclear, but I think I've taken it to mean that he was there in New York, having just gotten the time stone, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to herald his arrival on Earth. It doesn't really matter because pretty soon afterwards he knows where he needs to go, which is find the Mind Stone. He'll know where that is. He'll be following the team who are on their way to Wakanda. So there is about to be a battle in Wakanda under quite different circumstances. What I wonder though, is now you have a massively powerful being who's a zombie, but he does have the ability to do basically whatever he wants because he has so many stones. Does he turn back time and not become a zombie? Or does he, instead of having the population of the universe, to save resources, does he double the population of the universe to create more food for zombies?
Oh yeah, orders off the menu, basically.
I fancy some Kree today, so I'm going to double the population of their planet so we have food to last us, maybe.
Well, double the population across the universe.
Yeah.
So, he'd be dining out for a long time, I guess.
I absolutely loved this.
Yeah.
I want to see Marvel What If Zombies 2, where it is essentially the zombies going to the other planets, similar to the comic book, where they eat Galactus and then start traveling to other planets. I wanted, now they have the Thanos and the Infinity Stones, they can just zap themselves there. So I want to see, like, a halved Captain America kind of floating, kind of crawling and kind of going through. It'd be great.
That would be pretty cool.
This will all this is going to be, if we get to see it again, it is going to be the fun aspect of this. And I think if they really wanted to, they have two choices. They can go down the Marvel zombie hunting kind of, the zombie hunter kind of Spider-Man, and he's trying to cure the world, and they can do the heroes aspect, or they can go the dark route, and you can have the Thanos and all the other zombies who are still alive kind of continue on and go in search of food. And you can have them kind of retaining, not just, some of them getting smarter as they eat more.
Absolutely, that's a really good point, Chris. Just a couple of notes, I suppose, about the comic version and notes connected to the episode. It is really interesting, the reason why Robert Kirkman, who wrote Walking Dead and wrote Invincible, the whole reason why he took on the Marvel universe of zombies as something to write was because he was told effectively, you don't have to follow the survivors. That's the standard normal thing to do. That's what all the movies have always done. That's what Walking Dead did for its entire run. So he was told, if you come over to the Marvel comics and write Marvel Zombies, you can actually focus on the zombies and just follow them eating their food, which is basically what he did for his, I think he did 2 runs of it, but that's basically what he did. He just followed them eating and the impact on the zombies themselves. So, if they are to do another What If Zombies 2 in season 2, potentially something like that, I'd love if they continued that, if they followed the zombies rather than following a plucky group of survivors versus the zombies, because that is pretty much the standard.
Exactly, and they've done Dark now, and they've shown that Dark can work, because last week's episode was dark and spectacular.
Yeah,
and
I don't necessarily think it has to be dark, though. I think it could still be a lot of fun. Because the Marvel Zombies comics are lots of fun, even though you're following the zombies killing all of your friends and family on the comics, you know?
Sorry, by dark I mean that, but compared to other MCU properties, let's call them that, they are more darkly themed. Because it is death humor, dead humor, if you will. It's almost Evil Dead humor. Following the Deadites.
Kind of. Yeah, kind of. One final note. I'm sorry, just one final note about the comics that I have. Just thought it was interesting. The introduction of Marvel Zombies in the comics in Ultimate Fantastic Four is effectively a comic book featuring the Fantastic Four, who are brought over to another universe, which has Magneto sitting over there on the other side, and he's the last living hero, last living powered person. So you have Magneto on one side, Fantastic Four on the other, and obviously neither of those characters, MCU characters, just yet. So they could have taken the opportunity, if they're just translating it from comics to screen, they could have taken the opportunity here to introduce X-Men or Fantastic Four.
Oh my God, can you imagine? But like, also like they, in the comic books, you have Magneto using the shield to decapitate or at least cut off half of Cap's skull. And he constantly kind of keeps falling off, so he keeps having to put it back on like a hat. It's really funny.
Or at least the brains back in. Yeah.
Brain, yes.
And just a final note from me as well. It is, I think it's the first time in this episode where the Watcher is not a silhouette. We do get to see him right at the start, looming over New York there, and certainly having that they're really taking the look of Jeffrey Wright there, who is the voice of the Watcher, but it's no longer in silhouette. So again, kind of just another hint of him becoming more present in this universe, as we've seen over the course of these episodes so far.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I forgot to mention that as well. Yeah, really interesting to see the Watcher looking over.
Very cool. He's getting closer and closer and closer. Yeah. Each episode we're seeing him more. Like, he strangely didn't talk more towards the end in this one, but just if it had have continued in base of like him kind of starting to interact, like getting closer to interact.
I think he probably knew not to interact too much with people with the zombie virus. He's like, right, grand, I'll just leave it here and watch from a distance, not getting close to the bitey marks, or bitey teeth. Yep.
Yes, no, definitely. But, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, fellow defenders, we are at the end of our What If. So, we've gone through our notes. So, first up, do you defend this episode of What If? Derek!
Do you know, I was probably more excited for this episode than any of the rest of them because I love Marvel Zombies and I love zombies overall. I'm a massive fan of zombies. I think overall they accomplished a fun half-hour episode of the show. Not the best of the show, and the bar has been quite high for each of the episodes, so I don't want to say the worst either because I really enjoyed it. It was a really fun episode. I enjoyed it more the second time as well because I didn't have the same expectation I had on it the first time I watched. So this is a fun one. I think I'll go back and watch it again in the future. No issues with that. But yes, not the best of the series, but I did enjoy it. How about yourself, John?
Yeah, I definitely defend this. I'd give it 3.5 brains out of 5. I thought this was a really good, fun episode. I like with the Marvel Zombies just that there's the irreverence. You know, Falcon split in two by Okoye. You have Steve sliced in half by his own shield, by his best friend. There's a real irreverence that you'd never get in the movies, in that sense. Certainly not just the standard MCU movies.
Violence.
And the violence as well, I think, real nice horror violence here, but it's to that zombie land of having a dark comedic side to it as well. And I really, really like that a lot. I love the use of so just the Pym particles with Hope and with Hank. I thought that was just a real nice touch, really imaginative. I love little Hank just taking that little love bite on Captain Rogers, on Captain America's back of his neck. I loved all of that. I think there's some things that you just kind of going, okay, don't get it, but it's zombies in a universe, so I think that's fine, try not to sort of logic it out of existence. I just really thought that, the cloak with Scott Lang's head was classic, and around Spider-Man.
Feels like prom. Yeah.
Was really good as well. And yeah, it was a real nice, fun episode. So I absolutely defend this episode with 3.5 brains out of 5.
Excellent.
Christoph, do you defend this episode of Marvel's What If?
I do. Very much. I'm more with Derek in this, in that I had huge expectations. They were met somewhat. I had questions on a lot of it. And again, comic book movies. I just need to suspend belief, really, because it's comic books and it's comic book movies and comic book TV shows. I think in 5 years' time, when we get What If Season 5 and it's Deadpool in Marvel Zombies, there's going to be even more, and they can lean into the craziness and the zaniness of a lot of it. But it was a fun romp. Like, on my second view, I similar to you, Derek. On my second viewing, I enjoyed it even more. And I think when I do a rewatch at some point when I'm sick in bed, having a bit of a cold, and I'm watching back-to-back What If rerun, I'll enjoy it again. And I think that's kind of the key thing. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are at the end of this, and that can only mean one thing. Beer. So we're going to the pub for our pub quiz.
Yes, fellow defenders, fellow quizzers, come and join us at the Winchester, I think, for the pub quiz this time, where we're going to have a few pints and allow all this to blow over whilst the Marvel zombies nibble away on one another as we delve and nibble into our pork scratchings. This time, yes, a nice warm bitter, dare I say it, and possibly a baby sham, just to keep the British pub alive.
Not some Pims to celebrate?
Well, we could have some Hank Pims. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that would be good. With I guess, because it looks bloody, I guess. Pims, isn't it? It's red. Or maybe I'm thinking Vimto. Anyway, let us get on with the pub quiz question. So this is question 5. And what job does Okoye think Happy Hogan has? Just to repeat that, what job does Okoye think Happy Hogan has in this week's episode of Marvel's What If? Answers through to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. And again, you'll be in with a chance to get some goodies, some Funko Pops, Marvel What If Funko Pops, at the end of this series of Marvel's What If.
And as Chris said, they're getting better and better every week as the episodes go on.
I know,
the choice
exactly.
is getting better and better. Yeah, send in your thoughts on the answers to each of the questions to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. Thanks, John. That's a fun question for this week.
Yes, it is.
But we must leave the pub. And what's that I hear? Oh no, John has been eaten and he is away. Arg. We need to lose him now. So, because he's turning into one.
I must run off and chop my arm off so that the virus doesn't spread throughout my body, and then I come back to nibble on Derek.
Okay, cool. I'm locking the door of the podcast room. John, hopefully we'll see you back for episode 6 of What If.
Absolutely, certainly will. Okay.
Well, that's if he's not any more brain dead than he already is.
Oh, sting.
All right.
Yeah.
Sting and burn. But yes, thanks so much, fellow defenders and fellow zombies. I will say bye and adieu to you, and I'll see you for episode 6 of Marvel's What If. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. All right, Chris, John's gone. Time to rewind a little bit to last week for some feedback and some feedback about this episode.
Yes. First up, we have an email. Because, you can do that by sending an email to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. First up, it's a quick note from Steve Brown on last week's question about why did Hank kill Thor when he wasn't on the Avengers Initiative list? So Steve had this to say. They kind of yada-yada'd Thor's death. Fury asked Hank why he killed Thor, and Hank says that Fury would have recruited him or convinced him to join, something like that.
There you go.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. We all forgot it because it was kind of yada-yada'd.
And basically, Fury had the same question. Why did you kill him again? Excellent. Thanks, Steve. We also got an email from Jerry who says, hey guys, first and foremost, I want to thank Robert Kirkman for creating Marvel Zombies comic book. This was a great episode. In the spirit of the comic What If, the craziness was wonderful. The animation is top-notch as always. Voice casting incredible. Spider-Man actor was spot on. That ending, zombie Thanos. I want a zombie Thanos toy now. Just rewatched the episode. How would Thanos have got the Time Stone? He has no interaction with Doctor Strange. The Black Order that was sent to New York are attacked and become zombies, says Jerry. Jerry, I think we mentioned it in the episode here in our earlier discussion. I think it's that there is no resistance now to Thanos getting the stone because Doctor Strange has been taken out. So I think that's where he got the Time Stone. And as you mentioned, Mark Miller actually created the Marvel Zombies, but Robert Kirkman is much more well known because he did the series after that initial appearance and did a great job with it as well. It was great fun.
Yeah, no, exactly. He walked up and plucked it from the ground. Thanks for that, Jerry. We also have an email from Coffee and Vodka who said, "Greeting Deadite Defenders." Oh, I love the Evil Dead reference already. Mm-hmm. This is going to be a mildly diversive one. The animation, writing, and voice acting were spot on as usual. I'm sure the episode played great homage to one or more classic events in the genre, but I couldn't tell you which, as the only undead property I ever enjoyed has been the Evil Dead franchise. This due to the Deadites being used mostly for comic relief. Mm-hmm. Personal taste, as usual, has its place. If you can believe it, there are those who didn't like the third Thor film, for example.
Like me.
Yeah, we know some of those people, Coffee and Vodka.
We do, Derek. Yeah. Coffee and Vodka went on to say, "I'm sure this episode is going to be the favourite of many. For me, however, stories about the undead usually devolve immediately into creepy yet silly games of hide and seek or tag. This one, despite the otherwise fantastic production value, was no different. The cause of the event felt flimsy. The episode itself seemed more of a setup of something to come, Undead Thanos, than, despite the sacrifice of the heroes, something that happened. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Big Rogue One vibes. Still, it was good to see this level of horror, semi-gore and violence being allowed by the Mouse House. And of course, the second appearance of Chadwick Boseman. 2 jocular Ant-Man heads out of 5. Ooh. Take care in peace, Coffee and Vodka. Interesting.
Thanks, Coffee and Vodka. Yeah, no, I see what you mean about the Rogue One vibes.
Mm-hmm. Everybody dies. It's basically the Rogue One vibes, right?
Yeah, pretty much. That's it.
Yeah.
Your choice in Evil Dead franchise, it's still a good choice. It's definitely a good choice.
Absolutely.
And I think
especially
you're right.
If you include Ash vs. Evil Dead, the TV show, all of it together. Watch the whole thing.
Yeah. I have to go back and finish the last couple of episodes on that one.
Actually. Oh, Chris.
Oh, God. There's too much good content.
Yeah, but that's been out for 2 years. Go watch it.
I will. I have time.
I'll let you off the podcast for.
All right, bye. Just to close out on the kind of feedback from Coffee and Vodka, I have to actually say you're right. The semi-gore from the Mouse House is the fun part now. That the Mouse House own everything, and seeing a Hope Van Dyne explode from inside Sharon Carter is something probably we did. It does play homage to that whole Ant-Man in Thanos' bum kind of piece that we heard back during Infinity War.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I do see what you mean, Coffee Vodka, this devolution within the zombie genre, that it's always hide and seek. It's always people hiding from the zombies. And, you know, to stress the point, that is exactly why Robert Kirkman didn't want to do Marvel Zombies. But if you're going to do it for TV, maybe for people that aren't fans of the zombie genre, you probably do hit that trope once, which they've done in this episode. But I totally get it. If that's not your genre, I could see why you wouldn't like it. But thanks so much for sending your thoughts. Up next, we have an email in from Victor Von Doom. He says, "Greetings, Derek, John, Chris, and fellow Defenders. Now, that's a true horror show. George A. Romero and Robert Kirkman would be proud of this production. The animation reminds me of the artwork in Tomb of Dracula and other Marvel horror comics. The Cape, Battle, and Kirk were welcome comic relief. Even the Watcher wanted no part of this story. I would like to have seen a zombie Thanos versus Wanda battle in full. I look forward to your podcasts and Defenders feedback on this episode and the rest of the series. Excelsior, Victor Von Doom." I really like that thought of the artwork like Tomb of Dracula. I remember reading those comics when I was a kid. Very cool.
Yeah, they were fun. Yeah, if anyone has a chance, go back and read them. I'm pretty sure they're probably on Marvel Unlimited at this point.
I think so. Or at least on Comixology, you can pick up a collected edition. Yeah. The horror side of Marvel was always a lot of fun because it was so different from the main side. But I totally get you, Victor. The zombie battle between zombie Thanos and zombie Wanda would also be a lot of fun too, wouldn't it?
It would be. No, and I think, who knows, we may get it in the future.
You never know.
We may. Thank you for all that email feedback. it's time to head on over to the Gerarg book, the Facebook, for some feedback. First up, we have some feedback from Heather Wallace, who said, "What If drops at 5 p.m. here in Canberra, Australia, and I usually watch it as soon as it's on. But tonight I realised I needed some groceries, and if I waited until after the zombie episode, I'd be walking in the dark. No way. So I watched it a bit later, under blankets, just in case. It wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be, but it was very entertaining. I loved Spidey's introductory video. It mirrored the style of his recording the Avengers fight in Berlin, and the captions were on point. Mm-hmm. I'm very impressed Kurt was right about Baba Yaga. There really was a witch lurking nearby. I'm starting to think the biggest dangers to existence are Vision and Wanda's relationship and Hank Pym doing anything."
Mm-hmm, not wrong.
No, not really at all. Spider-Man was wrong about one thing though. He and Scott aren't the last Avengers. Since this took place at the same time as Infinity War, Thor would still have been rescued by the Guardians of the Galaxy and would be around somewhere. This episode was very enjoyable. Mix of creepiness, fun lines, twists, and heart. Hearing T'Challa say death is not the end has so much more meaning now. Mm-hmm. I can't wait to hear what you think of this episode. Heather. Thank you so much, Heather. Forgot about Thor. Mm-hmm. Yep. Will he get his eye? We will have to find out.
I know what you mean. Yeah, Thor possibly still alive, possibly saved by the Guardians. But remember, Bruce Banner does not know that, and he's the only person that's returned to Earth. So in the minds of Peter, I think all the Avengers are gone. I think is where we are, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Heather. Yeah, really good to hear your thoughts as well. Let's head on over to some more feedback from Facebook. We got some feedback in from Ray, who says, "What is it with zombie stories that just suck me straight into that world? Another fine episode from What If, with a spin on the zombie apocalypse. Seeing the likes of Happy, Hope, Sharon and Okoye fall victim to the zombies packed a punch, and I could just feel that hopelessness of the situation. I loved how Wasp got a big part in this. Well, the entire Ant-Man and Wasp ensemble. And again, it was great to hear Chadwick in one of his final roles. It's been a while since I read them, but I do think having Black Panther, a prisoner to be fed to the zombies, was somehow a reference to the actual Marvel Zombies comics. I could be wrong. All in all, an awesome episode, and I have to say, each and every What If episode has been a resounding success for me." Thanks, Ray. I think you mentioned that earlier on, Chris, about the reference to the comics.
You have a good memory, Ray. Well done.
Mm-hmm.
We also have some feedback from Michael Booth, who said, "For a zombie theme, this one was pretty lighthearted, despite the brutal deaths of so many favourite characters. Moment to moment, it had great character beats, and there were heaps of notable callback lines to other movies. But I thought the storyline itself was pretty weak. I don't understand why the Zombvengers were such a threat." I like the Zombvengers. We should have used that.
We should have. Yeah. Well done, Michael.
Well done, Mike. He goes on to say, "Iron Man and Doctor Strange were eaten by an ant swarm in a few seconds flat, and Cap and Hawkeye were dispatched with minimal efforts. Falcon caused a bit of trouble, but died pretty easy. The remaining team could have taken these guys out ages ago. Also, what made Vision change his mind? He went from murderbot to apologist very quickly, with barely any argument from the others. He went straight from, 'I must look after her and feed her,' to, 'Oh, what have I done?' Maybe it's another example of T'Challa, Thanos turning the silver tongue from episode 2. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it, but it didn't have the same punch as the last 4 have had in the story department. But to be fair, who watches zombie apocalypse movies for the plot anyway?" Thank you, Michael. A for Zombvengers, should have got that.
Yeah.
Agree on the Vision, we already called that out. I think just the overall murderbot to apologist, yeah, it was, we were in a 30-minute show. Like, if it had been a 60-minute, you could have had an extra 2-3 minutes where he talks, 40 minutes or 4 minutes, 5 minutes where he talks it through and they talk him through and etc. But yeah, it was just a quick change.
Yes, it was really quick, but I do wonder if it's a logic thing. He kind of goes, "I'm doing this. It's the logical thing to do," explains it to them. They say, "No, it's not." And he goes, "Well, okay, now that I've reassessed that logic." Maybe it's just as simple as that. Thanks so much, Michael. Matthew Randall also sent some feedback. He says, this was the one I was most looking forward to. I'm a big fan of the comics and I can't decide whether I'm disappointed or not. The one-legged Black Panther was great. I wish there'd been some more comic stuff like a legless Iron Man. One of my favorite things about Marvel Zombies compared to most zombie media is that the dead retain their personalities. There was a little of that with Wanda going over to Vision's corpse, but I don't know. It mainly followed the survivors, which isn't my favorite thing to do. Maybe it made it a bit more accessible though for everybody else. They could definitely do a whole show of this on its own though, if it got a good reaction. Oh, the Vision Wanda stuff was great. I definitely perked up at that stuff. Not as big of a cliffhanger ending as all the rest of them, but I guess they're in keeping with the nature premise of the show. Thanks, Matthew.
Yes, thank you, Matthew. The Vision Wanda stuff was great. The cliffhanger ending, we're not going to get much more from it. It's a zombie apocalypse. Like, they don't need to do much more.
But it is Thanos right there, easily able to have all 5 of the stones, and he should have the ability to use them. As you say, Matthew, in the comic books, the zombie characters are able to keep much more of their personality. So, maybe we will see it back and see what zombie Thanos does to the universe.
Yes, thank you so much. We have some feedback from Donald Dennis, who said, here are some of my observations. Hank Pym is responsible for everything bad. They are awfully spry for the dead. No complaint. The opening scene does a good job of showing what we can expect from some of the zombie. Strangely, they didn't seem interested in eating brains, just spreading the infection. I know it was a trope, but splitting up was moronic. There didn't even seem to be a legit reason, and the stories were so short they could have filled it with something better. Where was the Peter tingle? It seems pretty relevant to this story. If the zombies were smart enough to be doing all the stuff they were doing, why did Hawkeye lick his arrowheads?
Ooh, interesting.
Did not think about that one, actually. Yes. Sharon should have screamed out a warning instead of screaming in panic. Happy was turned into zombie like half a second. Hope lasted way longer. Nobody told Scott that Hope died outside the fences, but he certainly didn't seem that surprised when she stood up and grabbed them. Easily my least favourite of the episode so far. Not saying it was bad, but it was a bit of a letdown compared to the others. My biggest problem was the extreme difference between tone and situation. Normally I like the MCU stuff because it doesn't go all grim dark for every minor thing. However, this gave me a bit of a mood whiplash. I'll watch it again this evening and we'll see if it changes my opinion, but my first watch was a solid meh. On rewatch, I liked it better, but I think it would have been much better without Scott Lang.
Interesting.
Thank you, Donald. Oh no, I like Scott Lang. I'm sorry. I'm glad you liked it better on rewatch. I think all of us did. I think all of us found it. The second, third viewing, it gets better and better. I personally love Scott Lang. Aw.
It's the humor, I guess. Once you've heard those dad jokes and you've heard them for most of your life, when you hear Scott Lang telling them again and again, maybe that's what's not hitting with you. Interesting question about the Peter Tingle. I think there is a moment where you see him swinging through the city and he avoids being eaten. He just passes by a zombie. I think you do see a moment with that, but it doesn't factor in quite significantly in here. We don't have any moment where Peter is able to detect that zombies are coming by. So that would have been really useful, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yes, the Peter Tingle, or also known as just Spider Sense, but they can't call it that.
Well, they don't, anyway.
They should.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Donald. Greg Schwam says, I loved this episode. Who would have thought that the light-hearted episode after the super dark Doctor Strange episode would be the zombies one? And more shocking, it was actually funny and had more comedic moments than any of the other episodes. However, this one is the show where I missed an original voice the most, i.e. Tom Holland as Spider-Man. He had such a huge role in this episode, and while Hudson Thames did a reasonable facsimile of Tom Holland's Spider-Man, some of the catches in Peter's voice that Tom Holland nails just weren't there. The cast was amazing, the story was classic, and this is one I'll be able to watch over and over, even if Zomnos gets the Mind Stone and devours Scott Lang's disembodied head. See,
Zomnos, not instead of Thanos.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You could have gone Thanzon. No. Thanos. No, because Zanos. There you go. That's easier. Zanos.
It has to have the Zom, doesn't it, to get that?
Zomnos. Anyway, it gets difficult. Thanks, Greg. We also have feedback from Richard Blaze, who went, wow. How the hell did they get away with showing a horrific zombie apocalypse while simultaneously not showing a horrific zombie apocalypse?
There you go.
This was an absolute belter. So many good set pieces and generic zombie nonsense. Finally, we have a zombies being called out as zombies, and love that immediately shoot them in the head is given a way to deal with them. Hulk vs. Scarlet Witch was Alfie's personal favourite. My only grumble again, it's too short. I could spend hours, no days, actually weeks, watching stories in this universe, so desperately want to see how the virus spread across everyone, and more of the Vision feeding people to Wanda.
I love it, Richard.
Thanks, Rich. And yeah, no, you basically want to see the Hannibal episode of the Marvel Zombies, where it's just Vision like cutting people up and feeding Wanda.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess I would watch Marvel Zombies if it ran as long as The Walking Dead. I would watch that. I think it'd be great fun. The only challenge with Marvel Zombies always in the comic books is they're usually about a 4 to 6 issue run, is usually how they come out. And usually within the first issue, everybody's already turned over to being a zombie. It goes so fast in this universe. As we said here, 2 weeks the entire planet's covered. But I could definitely watch more of it. Thanks, Richard. Joe Stemley says, this was another episode that wasn't my cup of tea, and that's fine. I'm glad others enjoyed it. This was my second most anticipated episode after T'Challa Star-Lord, but the story didn't live up to my hype, and maybe that's on me. I found that the 2 episodes I didn't like didn't have the tightest writing, in my opinion. How did Thanos get the Time Stone when it had an unbreakable protection spell? And my bigger question is, how does someone with the reality, space, time, soul, and power stones get bitten by a zombie? So Time Stone, we think, possibly left on the sidewalk after the death of Doctor Strange, zombie. As for how did Thanos get bitten, you're right, he is massively powerful. He did get killed in the movies, though. He's not completely invulnerable just because he has the stones. He has to use them. But I think it is just more about that final image of, oh no, Thanos is here, he's got the stones, and he's a zombie. I think it's just the fun of having that. There's lots of comedy in this episode, so I think just having the fun of it. I'm not sure whether you're supposed to question how it happened. I think you're just supposed to go, wow, it happened, because it's inevitable that everybody's going to become a zombie in this universe.
Yep. Pretty much.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe. We also feedback from Jamie Lawton, who went, I like that in the orientation video presented by Peter, there was a zombie on a lolly stick. Reminded me of the production company Ident at the end of Buffy and Angel TV episodes, which we know created and written by Joss Whedon.
There you go.
Yep. That's why we've been going, grr.
Exactly. Thanks, Jamie. Dad Lee says, a bit late to the party here. Definitely my least favourite episode, but the one I was looking forward to the most. For me, the humour just failed to land, and I didn't enjoy the writing at all.
Oh, I'm sorry about that, Dan. Good thing is, though, next Wednesday you've got another one.
Mm-hmm. And we have no idea what's coming in that one.
No. We pretty much know all of them now. Like, we've seen pretty much all of them. I think the only one that we've yet to see is where there is the Gamora and a few others, and it's on back in New York and spins around instead of what we would have got in the original Avengers, where we have them all standing there. We have the other ones there.
Okay, I didn't remember that at all. I was just thinking the Killmonger episode, which
oh my god, the Killmonger! That's the only 2 we know. Then that's literally it. Okay,
4 more to go. We know that we have those 2, but those 2 are potentially in the same episode. We have no idea what's going to happen.
Exactly.
But hopefully, you'll enjoy that one more, Dan.
Yes, hopefully. Final piece of feedback comes from Lara Will Swink, who said, "Wow." 30 minutes of What If was better than 120 of Army of the Dead. Though I wish this was twice as long. It felt like everything happened so quickly. I love the dark twist of Vision turned full-on governor from The Walking Dead and feeding T'Challa and other survivors to his zombie bride Wanda. Also putting head in tanks just like the old governor. I thought Peter Parker's perky attitude felt a bit out of place until he explained Aunt May's philosophy and kept trying to smile. It was awesome to hear him acknowledge his Uncle Ben and deceased parents. And just like every zombie movie, just when you think there's a glimmer of hope for humanity, it ends on an ominous zinger.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does, Lara.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
You're right. We actually haven't said that. This is the first time they acknowledged Uncle Ben in the MCU and his dead parents. Like, he has not called them out directly.
That's right.
These are the first time he's mentioned both of them, which is good reminder. Thank you. I can understand some people not liking Peter Parker's perky attitude, as you put it. Mm-hmm. Try saying that 3 times fast. But again, once you hear this explanation of why he's always being the way he is, it's perfect. Yeah.
I think it's something that Peter Parker always gets criticized for, the character in the comic books as well, because he's always cracking jokes all the time, and nobody really understands why, but it's just part of his character. So I like that they have a good explanation for why it's happened here. 30 minutes of What If better than 120 minutes of Army of the Dead. I'd probably agree with you there, Lara, as well. That was a long movie that missed the point of zombie movies, unfortunately. I was really hoping that was going to live up to the hype of his Day of the Dead movie, Zack Snyder's Day of the Dead movie, one of my favorite zombie movies of all time, but just didn't nail it, unfortunately.
Yep, you could just also do Army of Darkness. Mm-hmm. Just slightly better.
Another Evil Dead movie. There you go. Yeah. Starting our feedback with Evil Dead and ending it with Evil Dead as well. Let's get on to some voicemails, though, to close out the thoughts about this episode. First up, Matt Murdoch has some feedback on the music for this episode.
Ooh.
Hello, Matt from across the pond here, guys. Not my favorite episode, episode 5, the zombie episode. I found the combination of humor and the seriousness of it all from a zombie apocalypse perspective to be a little weird. But that's just me. I'm sure everybody else loved it. When things go in completely different directions, I get messed up. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about was Cartman actually did a lot of direct quoting in this episode, especially near the beginning, which I found interesting because she hasn't been doing that a whole lot in past episodes. But this time around, when Zombie Tony and gang show up to save Bruce, you hear a direct quote of the Avengers theme, the melody. You don't get the chords. The chords are still something else going on underneath. You don't get the harmony, but you do hear the melody. And naturally that sets you up to think that everything is fine, that Tony has come to save the day. However, of course, as soon as he is revealed, and this is at the 3:34 mark, you hear a literal quote from Cartman using the string line from Psycho movie, which I just coincidentally talked about the last time I was talking about horror writing and such, and used it as an example in the last feedback that I sent. But this time around, there's no need to imagine it. It's right there. Again, that's in the high strings right at about the 3:34 mark when you first see that Tony is a zombie. Like I said, episode was okay, but I'm not going to poo-poo on it for anybody else. Did get a little emotional about Hope Van Dyne, which is not something that I expected, so that was good. Anyway, I hope you guys really enjoyed it. I hope everybody really enjoyed it. Take care.
Thanks, Matt. Just everything. Every time you do this is great. It's like having our own personal, Jean Baptiste in the corner. It's great.
I absolutely loved those moments throughout the episode. She does use a number of other themes. I think we do get the Ant-Man theme played when Hope is making her decision to go heroic. We hear bits of that as well, but it's great to have them pointed out, Matt. Thank you so much for your feedback. I know you didn't enjoy this episode as much, but it may not have been your favourite episode of the season, but it's still a pretty good time spent, right? It's still
exactly.
Still a bit of a half hour, a bit of fun with your breakfast cereal on a Wednesday morning, like I'm doing. Certainly. Thanks so much, Matt. Hopefully, we'll hear from you again towards the end of the rest of the season. Our final voicemail comes in from the wonderful Steve Brown.
Hello, TV Podcast Industries. This is Steve, and wow, another bonkers episode. A lot more humor in this one than last week, but again, Marvel. What if zombies? Very simple, direct, and to the point. Again, this is another one that's going to take some multiple watches to wrap my head around, I think, because, man, it just, so many images in this one that I can't get past. Again, incredible animation, as I said many times, and That image at the very end, though, of zombie Thanos just looking for the Mind Stone. Ooh, I wonder if this, didn't put to be continued at the end, but I hope that's what they're going to do next week, is that we're going to get a continuation of this. And just another really, really good episode. And I can't wait to watch it again multiple times. And I can't wait to hear everybody talking about this one. All right, later.
Thanks so much, Steve. You see what I mean? That lots of Walking Dead fans who are listeners to our show and are big fans of the zombie genre. So, and all of them seem to have enjoyed the episode, the ones that are Walking Dead fans. So perhaps that's part of it. Liking the zombie genre might give you a little bit more love for this episode. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly. And if there was a vampire one, if there was a werewolf one, I know if there was a werewolf one, every Moon Knight fan would be over and enjoying the hell out of it.
Maybe.
So it's just it helps, and it again, it's the sense of humor. This is the thing. If you didn't enjoy this, that's okay. You don't need to. There is another episode coming.
And that's the fun thing about What If, isn't it? That's the first time we've ever had that. Where you can just ignore an episode and move on to the next one if you didn't like
because
this
it's
one.
not connected.
Off you go. It's not connected, exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Steve, and thanks to everybody who sent in your feedback for this episode. You can email us through feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. You can go over to our Facebook page at facebook.com/tvpodcastindustries, or join us in our group on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries. We are available on pretty much every other social channel. Just look for TV Pod Industries or TV Podcast Industries. You'll find us there. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. We've got loads of other great stuff coming up for the rest of the season of What If, and for the rest of the year. Just subscribe to the podcast at tvpodcastindustries.com. One of those things is Why the Last Man, which begins...
Another apocalypse.
Yeah, another apocalypse, but begins next week. In the US, begins 13th, I think, of September on Hulu. We'll be seeing it over here on Disney Plus, on Star and Disney Plus, from the 22nd of September. First 3 episodes will be coming out that day, so we'll be almost immediately caught up with the Hulu broadcast. So don't worry, we may be releasing a little bit later to begin with, but we'll be very close to the US release schedule. But I'm really looking forward to seeing what people think of Why the Last Man.
Yes, we are big fans of the comic book here, and it has had a bit of an iffy, if you will, production journey. So fingers crossed it is going to be great. We also have the rest of What If and the other Disney Plus shows coming down, like Hawkeye and Miss Marvel and everything else under the sun, or in this case, the zombie sun.
Yes, lots and lots of stuff to cover. See, the new trailer came out for Picard Season 2 today, another show that we covered Season 1 of. That looks really interesting, so we should be back for that in February 2023 as well. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode. We'll be back next week to chat about What If Episode 6. Since John's not here, I'll say keep watching, keep listening, and keep defending. Bye.
Bye.